You're listening to Two Girls, One Crossword.
All the humor is gone. It's gone. The levity is gone. Like,
we're very serious, everyone. Basically, we had a audio mix-up on my part, and we had to start over and re-record this whole intro. So we will save the rift we were doing for another episode. But I'm Grace Topinka, and I'm mad, and
that's who she is. I was trying to do like a Sound of Music joke there. I'm Lise, and I'm 16, and I don't need a governess. That's Grace right now. To me,
basically.
Maria, the governess.
Yes.
What can you do?
Are you going to introduce yourself?
in any case, yes. I'm the governess. My name is Chelsea. I'm not mad. I'm glad. Don't get mad. Get glad. Hefty, hefty, hefty. That's like a mashup of a couple trash bag commercials for you.
We know the voices behind Hefty, Hefty, Hefty.
We do personally know those voices. That is our little celebrity flex for this episode. So be jealous.
Yeah. So try not to be intimidated. But we know people. But this is good. We are the Good Evening Girls. This is Two Girls, One Crossword. Your favorite weekly Podword crosscast. Ooh, that was hard to do it all in one.
There we go. And you're listening to another episode in the year of our Lord 2021.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us.
What a start of a year. I don't want to get into it on this episode. I don't know about you. My topic is kind of light and fluffy.
Oh, good. I mean, mine's not.
Yours isn't.
It's not. Okay. It's not like not, but it's not like, I'm not doing like the CIA, coup in whatever South American country we want to, talk about. It's not that.
Okay. All right. Well, should we just jump right into our heights and shites of the week?
I think we should do the heights and shites right now. Let's do it.
This moment. Okay. Let's see.
Okay. So if you listened to our last episode, we talked a little bit about some crossword resolutions. We had a list of things like we wanted to do this year in a crossword. And one of those was do more indie puzzles, right? And so I did the Themeless 88 from Palo Pasco's Grids These Days website. So I just want to kind of start off with that one. This puzzle was so much fun to do for so many reasons. I would recommend it. It was challenging because it's not, the same as, your typical New York Times or your Wall Street Journal or whatever. He gets a little wild. And I love that. I love that in a crossword. I love a little wildness. I'm just going to get us started off with the clue that made me realize how much I was going to enjoy this puzzle. And that was 31 across. Phineas blank Ferb, in parentheses, Disney show, but it's, and I can't underscore this enough, the German version. So the show is Phineas and Ferb, but if you were watching it in Germany, it's Phineas und Ferb, U-N-D. So
cute.
The cluing there is just so much fun.
That's a fun way to clue und, because the other one would have been like, and in German.
Right, exactly. There's also like a lot of fun constructing moments. Like Grace and I are not constructors by any stretch. And I think we often, gloss over those aspects of crosswords in our hits and shits because there's things that we like about certain constructions, but we've never constructed a puzzle. So we don't really have much to say about that. But two constructing moments that I did enjoy, like 33 across, we have two instances where clues, were right next to each other. And here's an example. 33 across, blank army, and the answer was BTS. And then next to that, 35 across, the exact next spot in the grid was 35 across, army blank, so ant. So you had a little bit of that,
oh, yeah.
Book ending.
Call that. Mm-hmm.
I have no idea what you would call that. If anybody's out there and they know what that is, let me know. And the same goes for 91 down. And not only are they next to each other in the grid, but the cluing is really fun. So 91 down, flip-flop, in parentheses. And this is the only sense of the answer word. Yes, indeed. And the answer was thong. So for flip-flop, the answer was thong. And then for 92 down, right next to it was slip-up. And this is the only sense of the answer word. Yes, indeed. And the answer was boner. Because, a slip-up can be called a boner, which I find offensive, but also exciting.
Yeah, that came up in the New York Times once, I remember.
I know.
Freaked out.
You and I were like, what?
I just can't imagine someone in real life being like, whoops, I made a boner. Be like, report it to HR.
Wow. Yes. No, I love that. And of course, you can't do a Palo puzzle without something like this popping up. 50 across. Buzz phrase associated with a certain fuzzy picture, ? And the answer was digital fur technology. And the fuzzy picture he is referencing is Cats, the 2019 movie musical.
Don't be shy. Just put cats in the puzzle. We know you want to.
Do it. God, I want to tell you so many more. So I'm going to tell you another one. 55 across. It's blank real estate.
It's free real estate. The meme.
It was like right in the center of the puzzle. And I was like, thank you, Paolo. Thank you. You would like this one. 16 down. Possible cause of death for Oregon Trail players. Yeah, the one in the memes. Just fill it in.
Isn't it like
dysentery?
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some
Amazing.
good stuff. And then I'll end on this one. 29 down. Name on Aaron Carter's jersey at the end of That's How I Beat Shaq. And the answer is O'Neal. But guess what I did? I went back and I watched That's How I Beat Shaq, the Aaron Carter music video, starring Aaron Carter and Shaquille O'Neal. So thank you, Paolo, for bringing me back.
Yeah, so I guess he gets a Shaq's jersey. I don't remember that. That's a deep dive.
Deep dive.
That's fun trivia, though.
It is. Good trivia. Good stuff. So thank you.
That was fun. Yes, next week I'm definitely going to do one from his website because they seem fun.
They're fun. They're harder, but they're fun.
Well, I enjoyed the Washington Post Sunday puzzle on January 3rd by Evan Bernholz called And Cut. There were a couple. Did you do that one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 26 across. Pet that needs you, but Kneads, cat.
Mm-hmm.
33 down. Copy of a sci-fi book, ? Clone. I like that one. 94 across. I feel like I've seen this one before, but it gets me every time. 94 across. Web developers.
Oh,
spiders.
Yeah.
I always think it's something else. But yeah, those are just my top 3 faves from that puzzle. Always fun. Always one of my faves.
Fun. The theme was great for that one too. I had the theme as like a hit for me. Basically the theme was in quotes end cut, like what a director would say on set when it's time to cut rolling, right? Basically the revealer was 114 across, film technique showing a divided frame, and what's spelled out by the first letters of this puzzle's 11 divided films. The answer was split screen. And so it's kind of hard to explain without looking at the grid. I always suck at explaining complicated themes, but basically there's all these circles split up across different answers, and those circles spelled famous movies, and the way that the clues were clued, you could clue them. It's very difficult to explain. I'm just going to read you one.
Yeah, just give an example.
To give you an example. So 24 across was mascara site / 1953 Western. And the answer is Lash. So the site where you would put mascara is Lash. But the letters SH were circled in that answer. Okay. So then you go to the very next clue in the grid, 25 across. Directed by George Stevens / begin blank, started over. So anew. So anew is for begin anew, started over. But the letters circled in that one are A and E. So it's the 1953 Western directed by George Stevens is Shane. So all 5 of those letters are Shane. Anyway,
and there's a black square in the middle of them. It's definitely a visual thing, but I did enjoy that. There was a bunch of, how many of them? 1, 2. There was like 9. No.
11 divided
12.
films.
Yeah, sorry, 11.
Anyway, definitely check it out. Evan always does some really fun puzzles, lots of really great trivia. And they're
Very
just more
smart.
fun to do than us to tell you how the theme played out.
Did you do the incubator? I don't think you did. I don't know if I sent it to you from December 31st.
Mm-mm.
Well, I was kind of hoping you did because there was the theme clue was 69 across with 47 down, popular Nintendo game, or a hint to 3 locations in this puzzle. And it was Animal Crossing, but they were crossed at the I in Animal and Crossing. And then I don't know what the locations were because I don't play that game, but I just liked to see that in the puzzle. Oh, by the way, this puzzle was called Interspecies Bonding by Sophia May Moods and Kyra Wilson.
Oh, okay.
But
I should do that one because I got a Switch for Christmas, folks, and I play Animal Crossing now. It's kind of a thing.
I will send it to you. Remind me.
Thank you. Okay.
But some other clues I liked from there were 66 down, type of squad that might fight tooth and nail. Glam squad.
Very nice.
And then 42 across, UFO pilots, presumably. Those ETs, which ETs is in crosswords all the time. I just like that clue because it's like, presumably true. We do not actually know who drives UFOs.
It's true.
So I like that qualifier.
Very nice. Did you do the Wednesday, January 6th New York Times?
I did.
By Eric Bornstein?
Mm-hmm.
I always mess up how to pronounce that. I can't remember how to say Stein versus Steen. Like where the I comes. Steen. You know? Anyway, Bornstein. I liked the theme of this one. The puzzle was fine, but the theme was a lot of fun. And apparently, it was even more fun if you did a printed out, like, from the newspaper version. In the app, we actually got like a little pop-up that said something like, in the print version of this crossword, the clues appear in a single list, combining across and down, which is interesting. And I was like, how's this going to play out, like, in the app? But anyway, basically the theme was these blank and blank phrases, and the clues were presented without across or down indications in like the printed out version. In the app version, it had the one across, and then like if it said one down, it said C notepad and whatever.
So you didn't know which one went in which direction.
Exactly.
Which clue.
But to give you an example, like one across was rubberneck. So one across was stop, but one down was stare. So it was stop and stare.
Mm-hmm.
Like, 9 across, Old Glory. So 9 across was stars and 9 down was stripes. So stars and stripes. Some other ones would be socks and sandals, born and bred, sweet and sour, tried and true. I just like that.
So basically they shared the first letter.
Yes.
So they were able to go either way.
Correct.
Up or down.
That's true.
I liked from that puzzle 24 down emoji that can mean get a load of this. It was the eyes emoji because I like to use that emoji.
Yeah. Right,
but I thought that was pretty good for New York Times. Again.
Yes.
Pretty good. Pretty good. I'll take it.
We'll take it. And then I'm not going to talk about the puzzle, but it was really fun. Grace and I haven't done a puzzle together in a long time. We used to try and do puzzles, as frequently as we could, in quarantine, right? But we got to do the Monday New Yorker together, which is another crossword resolution that we ticked a little bit. Grace said that she wanted to start doing some of the harder New Yorker puzzles, and we did the Monday puzzle by Elizabeth Gorski. We did the whole like duo solving over Zoom. Lots of fun. So it was good to do that because it's been so long since we solved the crossword together.
And we did it, in case you were wondering. We finished it.
We did.
Yeah, I think we got a little help.
We did.
But not much.
No.
We just had to check some things.
Yeah.
Checks and balances.
I think it's totally fine to check the crossword sometimes because that's how you learn.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it is nice, especially checking trivia, because then it's like, oh, now I know that for next time. And then I always forget next time, but potentially I could one day remember.
Yes, if I see it enough times, then I will hopefully one day remember. But my memory's slipping, so who knows? No promises.
I have a cheeky hit from the New Yorker, but not the one we did together. The one from Wednesday, January 6th by Natan Last. 22 down, bedside table supply, perhaps?
Condom.
Lube.
Damn, I was in the right zone, but I wasn't at the right door.
Yep. But anyways, I thought that was, that was pretty fun.
Love it. It's true.
Normalize lube, people.
Normalize lots of things. Are you finished with your hits and shits?
I'm finished.
Does that mean... Sorry, that was punny. Anyway, should we flip the coin?
Do it, baby.
All right, do it to it. I'm flipping the coin now.
Ooh, my neck cracked a little.
Heads.
That's you.
That's me. Let's do it, folks. My topic comes from the Wednesday, January 6th New York Times by Eric Bornstein. We said Steen, right?
Yes. Well, now I don't know.
Oh, I'm sorry, Eric. Let us know.
Eric, please tell us. Send us a voice memo.
Please. Thank you. 44 down. Condition that can lead to repetitive behavior for short.
OCD.
OCD. So we're talking about OCD today.
Oh, this is not a light subject.
It's not light, but I'm not getting like really, really deep into OCD. We're going to be talking about, the disorder, and we're going to be talking about other things, but This is all about learning, okay? I'm not trying to make anybody upset today. Right off the bat, I'm going to say that I got most of my information, if not I got a majority of it from the International OCD Foundation, which I might call the IOCDF. The IOCDF.
Rolls right off the tongue.
It really does. And then if it's not them, I'll cite who else I'm citing. Okay.
Okay, got it.
So if you don't know, OCD also stands for Obsessive Compulsive Disorder. And it's basically a mental health disorder that occurs when a person gets caught in a cycle of obsessions and compulsions. Okay. I'll get into more of this later, but to break it down, obsessions and compulsions are two different things, but you need both of them to be diagnosed as OCD, right? So obsessions are unwanted and intrusive thoughts, urges, images that kind of bring about intense and distressing feelings. And then compulsions, on the other hand, are behaviors that someone might engage in to rid themselves of these distressing feelings, and to get rid of these images or these obsessions that are appearing inside of them. So the obsessions kind of incite the compulsions, and the compulsions are a form of self-soothing. It's not good to do, and it can be therapied, and you can learn how to manage OCD. But that's basically what the compulsion does. It's there to kind of self-soothe you through these really intense, anxious moments.
Okay.
You might not know anybody that is diagnosed with OCD in real life, or maybe you do, but you haven't, they have not disclosed that information to you. But what I can guarantee is that everyone has heard someone say at some point in their life, "Oh my God, I'm so OCD," right?
Yes.
And we'll talk about that and how it's kind of a problem later. But what I want to highlight before kind of jumping into the meat of this topic is that according to the IOCDF, most people have had obsessive thoughts or compulsions at some point in their life, but it doesn't mean you have OCD. Okay, OCD is an actual disorder that you need to go to a psychiatrist or whatever to get diagnosed with. In order to be diagnosed, the cycle of obsessions and compulsions need to be extreme to the point where it consumes a lot of your time and interferes with your daily life. So if you'd your pencils really straight in your desk and you're "Oh my God, I'm so OCD," and you straighten them out, you thought about that for 1 second of your day. OCD consumes at least an hour of your thought a day, constant thought. And I'll talk a little bit more about some not personal experience, I don't have OCD, but experiences that I read online of people's experiences with OCD and how consuming these thoughts, these intrusive thoughts, and these compulsions can be.
Okay.
So what causes OCD? I'm not going to talk to you about the exact science, because I tried to read about the neuroscience behind OCD, and it is way past my level of comprehension, especially for a full work week. But I'll summarize it as best I can. According to the IOCDF, OCD is a problem with the communication between the front part of your brain and the deeper structures of your brain. And research suggests that internal serotonin levels are important to OCD, and common medications for OCD are aimed at affecting serotonin levels. So boosting your serotonin levels. You also see serotonin boosting in a lot of depression medication. So serotonin is really important to the health of your brain. Okay. The cause of OCD is not known, but it's thought to be caused in a couple of ways. So there's 3 unique ways that OCD can be proven to be caused by. So biology, which is the result of changes in your body's, natural chemistry or brain functions. So something happens biologically and you can develop OCD. Whereas one day you don't have it and the next day you could develop it. Genetics. So specific genes are likely to inform whether or not you have OCD. If you have someone with OCD in your family, like a mother or a father, you are more likely to be predisposed to OCD, and then therefore your children are as well if you decide to have children. And then it can also be learned. So obsessive fears and compulsive behaviors can actually be learned from watching a family member or a dear friend or someone really close to you that you're intimate with. And it can be gradually learned over time, which is kind of scary to think about, honestly. Things like family history of OCD, traumatic or stressful life events, and the presence of other mental disorders can also lead to someone having OCD. there was this really interesting study published in the Guilford Press called Talking Back to OCD. And it was published in 2007. And it shows how genetics play in terms of like when OCD is developed. And genetics played a huge role in the development of OCD in children. So 45 to 65% of children developed OCD like from a genetic predisposition. Whereas,
you mean of children who have OCD?
Well, yeah, children who develop OCD, like as children, which is like usually around age 8 is when children kind of start developing OCD. But if you're not developing OCD within like that age range, you usually will develop it later in adulthood. Not late adulthood, but like, you know, in your early 20s. And so if you're developing OCD as an adult, genetics played a much smaller role. Only 25 to 47% of adults who develop OCD develop it through like a genetic predisposition. It's kind of interesting. Yeah. So what I took from that is that it's more likely for adults to have some sort of traumatic life event that then lends itself to the development of OCD as like a coping mechanism for, you know, PTSD, ADHD, anxiety, that kind of thing. Because all of those, you know, disorders are very closely connected. A lot of times people with OCD also have ADHD, PTSD, anxiety, depression, and the same goes for those disorders also potentially having OCD. Anyway, I digress. So, OCD can be found in anyone. It can affect anyone, all races, ages, ethnicities, genders, etc. And it can start literally at any age, but it typically begins in 2 ranges, like I said, like childhood, so between the ages of 8 and 12, or in your late teens and early adulthood. So those are the 2 big ranges when OCD kind of starts appearing. The National Institute of Mental Health estimates that 1 in 200 kids, so that's approximately 500,000 kids, have OCD in the United States.
Wow, that's a pretty big number.
It's a pretty big number. And then 1 in 100 adults, that's 2 to 3 million adults in the US have OCD.
Wow.
To give you perspective, there are 3 million people living in Chicago right now. Just to like give you like some ideas of like what that means.
But like you were saying, you might not know that someone has it.
Right.
I mean, you probably don't unless they tell you. Right.
You know, nobody has to disclose their disorders with you. And a lot of people live with OCD and are functioning without psychiatric help because there are, you know, different ranges of severity in terms of like your symptoms and like your obsessions and your compulsions. And some people go their whole life having OCD and not even realizing they have it because there's some compulsions and obsessions that are harder to diagnose or harder to recognize as different than anxiety. Anxiety and OCD can oftentimes get misdiagnosed because they can be so similar.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. So let's talk a little bit more about OCD and the symptoms of OCD. Like I said before, it's like a disorder that occurs when you kind of get caught in this cycle of obsessions and compulsions. So I'll break down obsessions and compulsions just like a little deeper. Obsessions are thoughts, images, or impulses that occur repeatedly to a person, and they feel entirely out of their control. They're unwanted thoughts. So these individuals don't want these thoughts, but the OCD kind of like manifests them. And these people find these thoughts very distressing. They're invasive. They don't make sense most of the time. And which I imagine would double the distress. The fact that you can't completely comprehend these thoughts just adds more distress, then makes it worse and worse, right? And so the thoughts are usually joined with intense feelings of disgust, doubt, or the feeling that things have to be done just right. And these obsessions can become time consuming and get in the way of daily life. And that's the most important part about being diagnosed. Like I said before, like obsessions and compulsions literally consume huge chunks of your life. We're not talking like, I want my pencils to be straight, or the fridge needs to be organized perfectly, or like, oh, I'm so OCD, like my closet is so organized. No.
Well, isn't one of the biggest misconceptions is like OCD is about organization?
Right. It is.
Because I feel like that can be a small part of it, but that's not, like, not every person who has OCD is super organized. I only know this because I follow this YouTuber who's like she does like comedy videos, but she has OCD and she's talked about it, and she's like a really messy person. She says it bothers her when people are like, I'm so OCD, I need everything to like be put away perfectly. And she's like, no, that's not what it is.
The big thing that I realized through my research is that you have to have both the obsession and the compulsion. So the obsession is the invasive thought, and the compulsion is what is the action that you take to soothe the obsessive thought. So like my obsessive thought could be like, I think I'm going to fail this exam. And like the thought is so invasive and invasive and invasive that my body manifests a physical action for me to compulsively do to soothe or to make that thought go away. And that obsessive or like that compulsive action could be knocking on my desk 3 times. It could be walking in and out of a door 3 times. It could be, I'll talk about more examples of that, but you have to, it's not like, oh, I'm so messy, I'm going to clean my room. It's like, that's different. You know, you can have compulsive behaviors and you can have obsessive thoughts, but they have to be paired together for that OCD diagnosis. Yeah. You know what I mean? Anyway, so I'll talk a little bit about types of obsessive thoughts and types of compulsive behaviors. So we'll get into that. Let's see. So yeah, like we've been saying, the time consumption and the disruption of life is what differentiates OCD from having like an obsessive personality trait. Okay. Here's a quote from the IOCDF. Quote, unfortunately, obsessing or being obsessed are commonly used terms in everyday language. These more casual uses of the word mean that someone is preoccupied with a topic or an idea or even a person. Quote, obsessed in this everyday sense doesn't involve problems in day-to-day living and even has a pleasurable component to it. You can be obsessed with a new song you hear on the radio. You can still meet your friend, but you can still meet your friend for dinner, get ready for bed in a timely way, get to work on time in the morning, etc., despite this obsession. In fact, individuals with OCD have a hard time hearing the usage of, quote, obsession, as it feels as though it diminishes their struggle. And then another quote, in the context of OCD, these intrusive thoughts come frequently and trigger extreme anxiety that gets in the way of day-to-day functioning. So like, a lot of people with OCD literally have trouble functioning from one moment to the next, you know, waking up, getting to work on time. Once you're at work, completing like your duties, getting on the train to go home, getting home, feeding your dog, walking your dog, like all of these things become huge obstacles for them because of these obsessive thoughts. And this is not everyone. Obviously, OCD is different for everybody, but just to give you like a broader understanding of the disorder. Yeah. So the different categories of obsessions, I'm going to break them down for you. There's quite a few, so I'll kind of like go through them quick. So there's like the contamination. So that's like an obsessive thoughts about body fluids, germs, and dirt. Then there's losing control, which is the fear of acting on impulse to harm oneself or others, fear of violent images in one's mind, fear of stealing, blurting out obscenities and insults. Then there's obsession about harm, so fear of being responsible for something terrible happening, like fire or like a robbery. Fear of harming others because of not being careful enough, so like dropping something, not cleaning it up well enough, and then someone slips. You could like obsess over that. Then there's obsessions related to perfectionism, so evenness and exactness, concern with a need to know or remember everything, fear of losing or forgetting important information, or forgetting and like throwing out something really important, or fear of like losing things. Then there's unwanted sexual thoughts, so forbidden or perverse sexual thoughts, like that could include pedophilia, for instance. Obsessions with orientation, so there's a classified version of OCD where it's like homosexual OCD, where people are obsessed with being gay. Like if they walk down the street and they're like, that guy was really attractive. I'm gay. Oh my God, I'm gay. Even though they might not actually be oriented as homosexual. And then there's like religious obsession. So concerned with offending God, or blasphemy, excessive concern with right or wrong in terms of morality. So yeah, that's some versions of obsessive thoughts.
It's quite the variety.
It's quite the variety, and it's much different than like, oh my God, I just need to be so organized. Yeah. There is an element of some people with OCD have like an obsession with organization, but that is like one of very, very many different types of classifications. So that brings us to compulsions. So compulsions are those repetitive behaviors or thoughts that someone might use to kind of neutralize or counteract their obsession. Okay. So people with OCD know their compulsions are only a temporary solution, right? But without a better way to cope, it's like the easy way out. So if you are not in therapy, for instance, like your compulsive behavior might be the only way that you know to soothe that anxiety. And so then you engage in it. Compulsions might also mean that you're avoiding situations that actually trigger your obsessions, which is in itself a compulsive behavior.
Yeah.
So, and then again, compulsions are time consuming and interfere with daily life. And just because you have repetitive behaviors or rituals, it doesn't mean like you are experiencing OCD or compulsions. So like arranging books and like arranging or ordering books for 8 hours a day, like doesn't mean anything if you're like a librarian, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or if you are like a stickler for details or like to have things neatly arranged, that's like compulsive behavior, but that's not necessarily OCD.
Mm-hmm.
So from IOCDF, quote, in most cases, individuals with OCD feel driven to engage in compulsive behavior and would rather not have to do these time-consuming and many times torturous acts. In OCD, compulsive behavior is done with the intention of trying to escape or reduce anxiety or the presence of obsessions. End quote.
Okay.
So let's talk about types of categories of compulsions. So there's the washing and cleaning category. So like washing hands excessively, excessive showering, bathing, toothbrushing, grooming, doing other things to kind of prevent or remove contact with contamination. I'm actually watching a show right now, and one of the lead characters has that compulsion to wash her hands constantly, and her hands bleed and crack and are just like, she's in so much physical pain because of that compulsion.
Yeah, that's The Aviator too, right? Have you ever seen that movie with Leonardo DiCaprio? Yeah.
I did not know. Interesting. Okay. You learn something new every day here, folks.
You do.
Another category is checking. So checking that you did not and will not harm yourself or others. Checking that nothing terrible happened. Checking that you did not make a mistake. So this could be someone like checking 20 times that the hair straightener is off, or checking that the doors are locked, or that, the gas is off on the stove. Then there's repeating. So rereading or rewriting, repeating routine activities, going in and out of doors, up and down from chairs, repeating activities in multiples, so doing a task multiple times to feel good, right, or safe. And then there's mental compulsions, which are counting while performing a task to land on like a good or a safe number, canceling or undoing, which is like replacing a bad word with a good word to kind of cancel it out. So that's like a mental compulsion as well. So how is OCD treated? The most successful treatments for OCD are CBT, or so cognitive behavioral therapy, or medication, or a combination of both. So the CBT used for OCD is exposure and response prevention, which is basically like you're with a trained professional, right? You're with a psychologist or whatever, and you expose yourself to thoughts, images, objects, and situations that make you anxious and start or like trigger your obsessions. And then the response prevention part refers to like making a choice not to engage in those compulsive behaviors once your obsession is triggered. So when you don't do the compulsive behaviors over time, you actually feel a drop in your anxiety around those triggers. And then that natural drop in anxiety happens when you stay like exposed to those triggers. And so like over time, you're less likely to be triggered by those things and less likely to perform the compulsions related to those obsessions. And then medication, about 7 out of 10 people with OCD benefit from either medication or, ERP, which is that type of therapy. And people who benefit from medication, they usually see their OCD symptoms reduced by 40 to 60%.
Oh, wow.
So it's pretty good. And like I mentioned earlier, medicines for OCD are usually like a type of drug called serotonin reuptake inhibitor, so SRIs. And these are like, they help, manage the levels of your serotonin in your brain because they kind of increase your serotonin, and the serotonin is like a communicator between the different parts of your brain. And it makes it easier for your brain to communicate with each other.
Yeah.
Very basic science here, folks.
Are you a pharmacist?
I am actually a pharmacist now, so I'm not actually, don't come to me, but I'm your friendly neighborhood Googler. So just come Google and I'll look at WebMD for you. So because it's relevant, I wanted to flag an op-ed I read in Teen Vogue called "My OCD Doesn't Mean I'm Equipped for a Pandemic," written by Gloria Oladipo.
Mm-hmm.
I'll share this on Twitter for anybody who's interested. I'm going to read you Go ahead.
We could link it in the episode description too.
Yes, we absolutely can. I will. So I'm going to just read the opener for you just to give you like a vibe for what this op-ed is about. It's amazing. Definitely check it out if you want to like learn a little bit more about OCD and also like what rhetoric around OCD can mean for people who actually have OCD.
Mm-hmm.
So here it is. Quote. Since the COVID-19 pandemic started, some have suggested that those of us with obsessive compulsive disorder have a leg up in staying healthy. Let me clear something up. OCD is not a gift, and my obsessions around germophobia and cleaning compulsions certainly haven't given me an advantage when dealing with COVID-19. Interesting.
Okay.
So here's another quote. It's just easier to read the quotes because they just do it
I
so much better.
Yeah.
Okay. Quote. Like those who think I have a leg up on COVID-19 because of OCD, another stereotype is that OCD is a heightened ability. When I disclose my OCD to someone, there's a good chance I'll be met with a response like, wow, you must be so clean, or, quote, I wish I were more organized. Congratulating someone on their OCD is the equivalent of congratulating someone with an eating disorder for losing weight. Like any disorder, OCD causes a great deal of distress and pain. OCD comes with debilitating anxiety that can completely take over one's life. For example, during the height of my OCD, while my room was tidier and I was more organized, it was only because of the continuous, irrational, and intrusive thoughts I was having. Complimenting me on my tidiness reinforced my OCD and wasn't, in fact, a compliment at all. My OCD didn't serve me. My obsessions and compulsions only kept me more isolated, more depressed, and more anxious. Nothing about it was useful. And honestly, I wish I could talk about this subject for so much more. Like, now that we all know about OCD, like I found these incredible articles like all over like online about like stop saying, you know, oh my God, I'm so OCD, or misconceptions about OCD, and just like a day in the life of somebody with OCD that I wish I could talk to you guys about. But I'm going to end by quoting one last bit from Gloria's piece on Teen Vogue. Quote, misrepresenting OCD as a limited range of symptoms or as lucky only further stigmatizes those who suffer from it. And that includes the misguided comments about OCD and COVID-19. Reinforcing these stigmas and stereotypes prevents people from reaching out for help, particularly if they present symptoms other than those commonly associated with the disorder. This disproportionately hurts people of color, specifically Black people, who are already underrepresented in OCD research. End quote. And then I'm planning to share an article on Twitter. It was originally published by that IOCDF that I've been using for this whole segment. The article is called African Americans with Obsessive Compulsive Disorder, and it was co-written by Monica Williams, PhD, and Marlena L. Debrow. Williams is an associate professor at the University of Connecticut, a researcher on pneumology, assessment, and treatment of obsessive compulsive disorder, also ethnic minority mental health and disparities, and PTSD with a focus on racial trauma. And then Debrow is a research assistant at the University of Louisville at the Center for Mental Health Disparities in the Department of Psychological and Brain Sciences, and she conducts research on anti-racism interventions and ethnic identity development in African American youth. The article is so interesting, and it talks about, you know, the underlying issues with, you know, racial bias in medicine at large, but specifically with brain disorders and OCD. So I will be sharing that. And there's so much more to learn. And I really encourage everybody to start Googling and like learning more about things like that. It's just like one thing in like a very big pot.
I do feel like OCD is very misrepresented in media. I think because for a long time it was kind of given this like, oh, they're just a germaphobe. It's like organization, which kind of gives a positive spin on like, oh, if you have OCD, you somehow are like superhuman. Right. But that's not really true at all. Right. So yeah, I mean, I learned a lot from yours. I thought I knew already some things about OCD, but I didn't realize like all of the different categories of intrusive thoughts that you can have. Yeah,
it's crazy. And one of the articles I read, on another one on Teen Vogue about like day in the life of someone with OCD, she talks about like how the obsessive thoughts started, like it started in her early teens when she was in college, and she was like totally normal and an extrovert, and like, and then it kind of slowly started like these intrusive thoughts. You're going to fail your final. And then like, in order to like soothe herself, she would like knock on her desk. And then it was slowly like, it transformed into your parents are going to die. This car's going to crash. Like all of these things. And like, so then she had to develop compulsive tendencies to, you know, outweigh those thoughts. And another article talks about how the moment someone wakes up, the intrusive thoughts immediately start happening. And then the ritualistic behaviors of the OCD immediately kick in to self-soothe. And yeah, like this idea that you have of someone, like the media or like pop culture's version of OCD is so watered down and just really poorly crafted to think like these people are struggling like horribly. And it's not just about how clean your pantry is.
Yeah. All right.
Anyway,
well,
so that's that.
I don't know how we're going to have to somehow segue into my section, which is very different, but
good luck.
We will do it. We will get there.
We will.
My topic comes from the Monday New York Times on January 4th by Kathy Weinberg. And it is a very common one we see in crosswords. 13 down, Japanese dogs.
Akitas.
So my topic isn't just on Akitas. It's just on purebred dogs.
It's so interesting because I was thinking about doing Lhasa Apsos because there was a clue about like the Dalai Lama bringing Lhasa Apsos to America or something.
Yeah.
Could you imagine?
That is, and we both did. Oh my gosh. Well, that is another common dog breed in there. Although I will say, Akitas are always clued as Japanese dogs most of the time, and they're in the crossword a lot. But if there's any musical theater lovers out there, you can clue it from the iconic line in the Rent song, La Vie Bohème, which Chelsea doesn't know because she hates me.
No,
but there's a whole part where it's like, oh,
memory.
Tay Diggs, there's a death in the family if you must know. Who died? Our Akita. Evita. You make fun. Yeah, that one? Okay. Anyways, clue it as that, as the death in the family in La Vie Bohème, Rent.
Save it for when you construct a crossword.
Yeah, maybe. Okay. But like I said, I'm not really talking about Akitas. I'm just talking about dog breeds in general and the domestication of dogs and how that all happened.
Ooh.
So there are over 400 dog breeds in the world. Okay.
Wild.
But dog breeds have only really been around for 150 years. That's not that long, although it is a lot of generations of dogs, I guess, because they can have, you know, so many pregnancies and high turnover rate. Okay. But how did we get dogs as pets? So there's not an exact date or like how it happened, but anywhere from 15,000 to 40,000 years ago, scientists think we domesticated dogs. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's
very clear.
Yes. There's not consensus about when it occurred or even how it occurred, although there are some popular theories. So according to an article in Modern Dog magazine called How Dogs Were Created by Stanley Coren, one of the most common theories people believe is that wolves started befriending humans for food scraps, you know, like old prehistoric humans around the fire. Similarly, other people believe that humans took in a litter of like wolf pups and, you know, started feeding them and caring for them the same way we do to a modern pet, leading future generation of wolf pups to be born in the home and, you know, become more and more domesticated.
Okay.
However, both of these theories are wrong. Okay?
Okay.
Here's the thing. Wolves are genetically wired to be aggressive and suspicious. All right? They have to be.
Okay.
Multiple studies have been done to try and turn wolves into domestic dogs by raising them in human homes. For example, a team of researchers in Estevos University in Budapest took in 3-day-old wolf pups and home-reared them. The experiment had to be abandoned when the wolves were about 1.5 years old because they just could not fight their aggressive animal instincts. So,
unless like the Neanderthals were much hardier than we were and much more persistent.
Well, there is some science backing this. So let's get into like how it all started. We have to go way, way, way back.
Okay.
To prehistoric times.
Let's go. In my time machine. Let's go.
Yeah. They were nomads. They were traveling around the world, hunting big game who were eating plants because they didn't really have the tools to like hunt faster animals. So they had to, you know, hunt big, slow plant-eating animals. But then the Ice Age happened and it killed a lot of that vegetation that those big animals were eating. And in turn, you know, dwindled down those species of animals. Some went extinct. So humans adapted. They started forming permanent home camps, and people would work together to gather food from local plants, which would later lead to agriculture. But with these residential areas came garbage. The humans would dump their garbage on the outer limits of the village. And naturally, this led to some visitors, who were scavenging for food, including mice, rats, insects, and wild canines like wolves and jackals. So there's wolves, like the gray wolf, which all dogs, have some genetic tie to. And then wild canines is like any, I don't know, like jackals and
like a hyena or some shit.
I don't know if hyenas count, but wolf-like creatures. But I'm not going to go into like the whole difference, how many species of wolves and wild canines there are. Okay. But this was a win-win situation because the wild dogs would get some food and the humans had a way to get rid of their garbage and also other pests like the insects and stuff, which humans didn't like still at that time, they think. So over time, the dogs started getting more and more dependent on the human garbage. And the humans would start driving away or killing off any dogs that were overly aggressive or posed a threat. Okay, so this started to trigger a genetic change in dogs. Research shows that friendliness and fearfulness seem to be genetically determined to a degree. So the fearless, friendly dogs, fearless of humans that is, friendly dogs were more comfortable around the humans. They would live in the villages and over time start to breed with each other and have, sociable litters. So basically, all the friendly dogs, would hang out in the villages and they would start to have babies with each other. So then their kids would be friendly and then, kind of it goes from there. Okay. So over generations, the more wild, aggressive wolves stayed out in the wild and the more genetically social wolves lived in the city, becoming genetically pretty different from their wild counterparts.
Damn.
So it was evolution over time. These are like genetically different. Okay.
Hashtag Darwin.
Yes. So at this point, it was probably likely that humans started taking in wolves and treating them more like pets, including wolf babies, but these were not wild wolves. They were a new species of village wolf, which were partly tamed already. So basically, humans did not domesticate dogs. We did not tame the dogs. The dogs, or the wolves, domesticated themselves genetically. Isn't that handy?
Yeah. I love this.
But then we had to go in and get our hands dirty, right?
Yeah, we
did. So the humans
course.
came in and they started making some changes. It was a dangerous time and they realized that dogs could be used as protection. So one of the first acts of so-called breeding is thought to be breeding dogs that had loud barking genes. So when they had two dogs that barked loudly, make them get together and have babies, and then their babies bark loudly. To this day, one of the biggest distinctions between wild canines and domestic dogs is that wild canines rarely bark. Whereas domestic dogs, well, we know how much they love to bark up a storm.
I can personally attest to that fact.
Yes. So I thought that was, I had never known that before.
That's very interesting. Yeah.
That was one of the first,
wow. God damn, these fucking people. The people back in the, prehistoric times, they're making my life difficult in contemporary times. I got a beagle that will,
bark at anything.
Bay at any goddamn thing that moves. My God. Thanks, my dudes.
It's hard to think that Peanut, my 14-year-old deaf miniature dachshund at my parents' house, has been bred to bark at a shadow outside the door.
Thanks a lot.
That may or may not actually be there.
Right.
Okay. So recent studies have shown that by learning to bond and work with humans, dogs became worse at working together as a species. That's why, wild wolves and stuff, they have that pack mentality, but the ones who became domesticated, they kind of lost that. So they rely more on humans. But they may have been compensated in another area. So a common experiment is presenting a dog and a wolf with some type of impossible puzzle problem. So basically it's like a toy that's working and then all of a sudden it breaks. And the research shows that the wolves physically try lots of different ways to figure it out, to solve this puzzle, make the toy work again. Dogs, however, seem to give up at the first sign of trouble and they look to their human companion for help.
That reminds me of dogs. Yeah, my dog in particular. He'll be like, I can't get this thing out of my Kong. Can you get it out for me, please?
Exactly. So this is even more scientific proof. Studies show that when dogs and humans look into each other's eyes, their brains secrete oxytocin, which is a hormone linked to maternal bonding and trust. So this hormone is not present in wolves who are raised by humans. So that means it's a genetic difference. So even if a wolf is brought in and as a, wolf pup raised by humans, it does not release that hormone.
Are you trying to make me cry right now?
So Sorry
Well,
about
it's working, so.
Okay, but let's get to modern dog breeds because there's a huge jump from, these village dogs to pugs and Akitas.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so this information is from The History of Dog Breeds by Michael Warboys in theweek.com, an article. So over 150 years ago, a dog breed didn't mean much. Dogs were bred to work on a farm, hunting, guard dogs, lap dogs. Basically, that was it. They were just like, this dog is good at hunting, this dog is good at sitting in my lap, etc. Okay, but then in mid-19th century London, which is where the AKC is like started and everything, people started to care more about hygiene, and farm animals like pigs and sheep were sent to live outside of the city. Dogs, however, were allowed to remain in the home. So once the Victorian age hit, dogs became less of a practical asset and more of like a private property that people could brag about. So especially among like the middle and upper class, having dogs was kind of a hobby and like an image thing.
Oh, sounds about white.
Yeah. So kennel clubs started going nuts. Breed standards were contested. Competitions were held to select the best dogs in the class. And everything just became more and more specific. So, for example, in the 1840s, there were only two types of terriers that were recognized. By the end of the Victorian period, there were 10. And today, there are 27 types of terriers. So people realized they could start making money off of this. Owners would gain prestige and money from sales and stud fees. And dog breeds were associated with class and gender. So sporting dogs were favored by the upper classes, even though most of them were just for show and not used for sport at all. Middle-class owners wanted fashionable breeds that indicated status and wealth. Ladies liked the toy breeds. And popular among the working class were bulldogs, terriers, and whippets. Whippets.
I love a
good whippet?
I love a whippet. I love a whippet.
I love all those little skinny dogs with the tiny little skinny faces.
Their tiny little sweaters.
They need them. They need them because they get too cold. Okay, so the new aim for dog breeders was to bring every dog up to breed standard, producing uniform breed populations and thus improving the nation's dogs. I put that in quotes with my finger quotes. What is really being improved here? Okay.
Right.
So with individual breeds, the aim might be to change a particular feature for like taste and aesthetic reasons. Or in more radical cases, people would create a whole new breed by adding or subtracting physical attributes. And also this was a time when people were like immigrating. So we had like dogs. I mean, every dog breed kind of started in, its own area. Like Akitas are Japanese. I believe Basset Hounds are French. Beagles, well, now I don't know. But there was a really fun infographic where they had like drawings of the dogs. So anyways, it's kind of interesting to see like what country.
Maybe we'll share that.
Yeah.
If you find it.
Yeah, that would be fun. Okay, so today there are over 400 dog breeds in the world, but the AKC only recognizes about 190. So I don't know what the heck those other 200 are doing. But I'm going to go into some fun facts about different dog breeds.
Okay.
And these are from purina.co.uk, mspca.org, and akc.org.
Okay.
Okay, so Newfies.
Big boys.
They are the ultimate doggy lifeguards because they have water-resistant coats and webbed feet. They were originally bred as fishermen's helpers and to rescue people from drowning. I would not have known that.
I had no idea. And also, you look at a Newfie, and I would think that dog would sink directly to the bottom.
Yeah, I would think that dog probably should not get anywhere near a pool. I mean, their hair alone, when it's wet, has to weigh like 100 pounds.
Right. Wow. Okay. Well.
One of our coworkers has a Newfie, and we met him once, and he is the
we
biggest.
Met him in the snow. Okay.
We should post those pictures. Just because those are like my favorite pictures we've ever taken. She has like all these cute dogs, and it was snowing and it was on a farm, and it was just like the best day of my life.
It truly was like a beautiful lesbian Hallmark paradise. I'm not saying we're lesbians. I'm just saying we were all women with dogs on this farm. It looked like a Hallmark lesbian movie. Continue.
That is my one complaint about Happiest Season. No dogs. Okay.
There we go.
Even though she was a dog walker.
We didn't see a single pet. He killed the fish. Anyway, it's fine. It's fine.
Back to the topic. Okay, the Australian Shepherd. These are the ones with like the blue eyes. They're really pretty, but they're
gorgeous.
They're not from Australia. They're actually an American breed.
Wow. What the hell?
Would you look at that? According to PBS, a bloodhound's sense of smell is so spot on they can be admitted as evidence in a court of law. Bloodhounds.
Oh my God, I want a bloodhound so bad.
They can follow tracks that are over 300 hours old and can stay on a trail for over 130 miles. So, if I ever get murdered...
Dogs are so impressive.
They are. But I don't know why you want one, because there's so much work.
I have one and I hate it, but I love it.
For someone who's not going on the trail. Okay. A greyhound would actually beat a cheetah in a long-distance race. According to Psychology Today, greyhounds are excellent long-distance runners, and they can keep a speed of 35 miles per hour for up to 7 miles. That is nuts. Cheetahs are obviously extremely fast, but they can only keep its speed up for around 200 to 300 yards. So they would like win in the beginning, but a greyhound would eventually surpass them in a long-distance race. I don't know if anyone could ever arrange that type of race to happen.
Slow and steady wins the race. Okay, yeah. So...
on average, around 30% of Dalmatians are deaf in one ear and 5% are deaf in both. And this is due to something called extreme piebald gene, which is responsible for their white coat and blue eyes. So Dalmatians who have like more white on them, they are more likely to be deaf. Same with like albino dogs.
Mostly, if you see like an albino dog, a lot of them are deaf or blind also.
But not all of them. There's these two, I haven't seen them in forever. There were these two albino Great Danes in my neighborhood. And,
albino Great Danes?
Yes, I've never told you about this. One of them jumped up and put its paws on my shoulders to give me a hug, and the owner was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." I was like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me." But she says they're not related. She rescued both of them because,
what are the chances?
Yeah, but she says one of them is deaf and the other one isn't, or blind. So,
okay,
you never know. Okay. The poodle haircut. Have you ever seen like the standard poodle's official haircut, and they have like the two little pom-poms on the butt? So the poodle haircut was originally meant to improve the dog's swimming abilities as a retriever, and the pom-poms were left in place to warm their joints, like their little pelvic joints. I knew that.
That's
but cute. It also makes me laugh, like all these people breeding these dogs into oblivion to have these traits that they never actually use. Like,
exactly. What's the point?
Yeah, I'm gonna go in more into that.
Yeah.
And then the top 5 favorite breeds of dogs in the U.S. are Labrador Retriever, Golden Retriever, German Shepherd, Beagle, and Dachshund.
I would have guessed probably most of those.
Yeah. People love them some retrievers.
They do. But
I cannot talk about breeding. I wanted to keep it light and fluffy, but I have to talk about like the bad side of breeding.
Please.
Okay, so I'm going to read, well, first of all, little disclaimer. This is from The Truth About Dog Breeding on Rover.com by Jacqueline Bennett. She says, quote, "Although there are plenty of wonderful breeders with good intentions, there are also scammers looking to cash in on our puppy love. Take the necessary steps to make sure you aren't supporting breeding practices that are ending in illnesses for millions of innocent dogs." So there are good breeders out there. There also are like tons of rescues for specific, like breed-specific rescues if you're interested in that. I don't know if this is scientifically found, but this is a personal anecdote. I know a lot of purebred dogs who die early from like random like cancer and tumors and, a bunch of weird stuff. So
right.
I don't know if I feel like the dogs who live to be like 17 and are hobbling around and who've spent like most of their life on a porch are all like mutts that are just a combination of who knows what that someone like found on the side of the road.
Right. Well, you've seen all the like either tic-tacs or memes. It's like the $3,000 dog that my mom got from the breeder, and it's like a beautiful dog, but they're just totally fucked up. And then it's like the dog we found in the trash can in the alley in Los Angeles, like lives to 22 and smokes a pack a day and like
and is
totally
like perfectly
fine.
Behaved. Yeah. Okay. But mostly, I want to read, I'm just going to read verbatim because he wrote it better than I could. This was an article on slate.com called Fido, Our Creepiest Genetic Invention, the Dog by William Salatan. Okay. "We invented the dog. Dogs are dumber than monkeys and other mammals in many ways, but they excel at one thing, interpreting human behavior. Through selection, we've hardwired human compatibility into dogs. We've made a species in our image. But that wasn't enough. We had specific needs. We bred hunting dogs, herding dogs, sled dogs, and guard dogs. We turned reproductive separation and inbreeding into a science, multiplying and dividing the species into more than 400 breeds. Each breed called for special traits. We bred collies for vigilance, Rottweilers for aggression, retrievers for obedience. In a span of decades, we bred ferocity into Dobermans, and then, with equal deliberateness, we bred it out. We treated dogs like guns. We designed and bought them for protection, then complained when they hurt us. When cities banned pit bulls, we bought Rottweilers. Not all our designs are utilitarian. We made some breeds just for fun, like the Pharaoh Hound were thought to be ancient because they looked like dogs drawn on Egyptian tombs. Turns out they weren't ancient at all. Modern breeders crafted them by mating dogs that looked like the drawings. Life imitated art. In the course of engineering dogs to look, feel, and act as we wanted, we ruined millions of them. We gave them legs so short they couldn't run, noses so flat they couldn't breathe, temper so hostile they couldn't function in society. Even our best intentions backfired. Nature invented sexual reproduction to diversify gene pools and dilute bad variants. By forcing dogs into incest, we defied nature. We concentrated each bad gene in a breed, magnifying its damage. Epilepsy for Springer Spaniels, diabetes for Samoyeds, bone cancer for Rottweilers. That's why the dog genome is so nifty. We can find diseases genes just by comparing one breed's DNA to another's. Well, too bad for the dogs, but 3 cheers for us in our experiment. Quote, "The dog genome is a wonderful playground for geneticists," exults the New York Times. Man's best friend, indeed.
Damn. I mean, hello. Honestly.
Actually, there is like a train of belief among like animal activists that having dogs or having pets at all is like cruel. To breed animals to be your pet is cruel because it's different if it's like an existing dog out there, but to continue to like breed animals just to like live in your home and breed in all these like health issues into them just to have them for your own like selfish aesthetic needs. Some people say that's technically animal cruelty because animals can't consent to that. So I don't know. I don't necessarily believe that. Also, I just want to say, like, my family, we've only ever had purebred dogs, so I'm not trying to point fingers at anyone. I probably wouldn't get a purebred dog. For the one, I'm not paying $700 for a dog unless that dog cleans up its own shite and cooks me dinner every night. But I've seen like so many health issues. I just don't think it's worth it. But
and there's also so many dogs in shelters that need homes already. Like,
yeah,
they're either going to like die alone in a shelter or, be killed in a shelter because there's not enough space for them. So if you're really thinking about getting a dog, you can definitely find your new best friend at your friendly local shelter. But yes, I've heard about these problems with breeding and like the breeding scams are huge. And then like the illnesses that these dogs have because they're quote unquote purebred or whatever. I mean, a personal experience of mine also, like you mentioned that there are specific, rescues for specific breeds of dogs. Like we were looking to rescue a, not a purebred basset hound, but a basset hound. And we went through a bunch of different basset rescues and we were basically turned away because we had, quote, no dog rearing experience, even though we both were raised with dogs in the home. And like Matt raised dogs his whole life. And they told us like we were better off trying with like a shelter dog. And I'm like, you're a shelter. That basset hound that I'm applying for is a shelter dog. And there was like this like weird elitism to rescuing a certain type of dog. And I'm like, why are we doing this? Like, what is with the elitism? And like, what makes, your basset hound at your shelter better than the half basset that I rescued at a local shelter here for
and you
much
ended
less?
Up getting a perfectly good
bagel. I got a bagel and I love him to death. And he's a good boy, but he's also a bad boy sometimes.
He's very naughty on purpose. I don't know. Dog breeding, it's a thing. Like I don't know. I love Dobermans. I want to have like 5 Dobermans that are my guard dogs. But it's definitely something to look into. If you are looking to buy a breed, they're definitely responsible breeders. And then there's scammers and people who are in it just for the money. So yeah.
Be wary.
Anyways, that's that on that. What is, let's see. We should end on a high note about dog breeds. Do you know any fun dog breed facts?
Let me see.
Well, I know one. So we have a miniature dachshund. And actually, so those are bred to be like tiny. Real dachshunds are bigger. They're more the size of a beagle. I actually had a friend growing up who had 2 of them and they were huge. They were really cute. But they were originally bred to hunt badgers. That's why they're tunnel shaped, because they used to like go in to tunnels and, hunt badgers.
I love that so much. I love it so much. I love that so much. I really do. That just like brings an image to my mind that makes me really happy and really giddy.
Yeah. Peanut could never. Although she has killed a couple animals in her day. I'll give her that credit.
Neptune has definitely tried. Has tried it and failed. He did catch a bird once, but the bird was injured. And he like got the...
Oh, let him have it.
Oh my God. One fun fact. I don't know if it's fun. It actually ruins my friggin' life. My beagle, he's a beagle basset. That's why we call him a bagel. But because hound dogs have such incredible noses, like their noses smell at minimum 4,000 times stronger than a human nose. It's going all the time. And my dog perimeters the apartment like 3, 4, or 5 times before he can settle down for the night. And his perimetering is basically just sniffing. And because he smells so much, he needs to drink more water. So he drinks more water every day than I feel like I drink in a single week. That's how much water this dog drinks. And because he drinks so much water, that means he needs to go outside to pee. Every time you take him outside, his pee is crystal clear. This dog is the most hydrated animal on the planet.
He is. That boy likes to drink, and he's very loud about it.
He's so loud, and he just gulps and gulps and gulps and gulps and goes and goes. And it's one thing if you have a backyard, you can open the door, let your dog out. I live in a city, and I need to put my jacket on and my boots on. I got to put his jacket on. We got to take him outside, down the stairs, through the courtyard, through the back alley, to the grass, and then back, and then all the way. I'm just complaining. Like, I know this is a responsibility I signed up for, but...
Yeah, you're the one who got a dog. I will say Peanut does not like to go in the backyard to pee. She definitely won't poop back there. She needs to go on a walk.
Oh my God. Neptune is like, he's a priss about pooping. If it's a little bit wet on the grass, he won't do it.
Oh, dogs. And this is why I don't have a dog and I have a cat instead. So, shout out to cats.
She likes being like surrogate dog mom to like all of her like little doggy best friend children's, but...
Exactly. All right. Well, I guess that's that on that.
That is that on that. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. And if you're interested in talking to us about dog breeds or, I don't know, an OCD diagnosis, I cannot give you the diagnosis, but feel free to stop by our DMs on Twitter at, what are we? I think I always say...
Twitter's at The Good Eve Girls.
And Instagram is The Good Evening Girls. So come over and say hey.
TikTok is The Good Eve Girls. And send us a picture of your dog if you want. We would always, you can do that whenever you want. Any of your pets.
Yes, please do. We might, I don't know, post it on our Instagram because we love them so much. Or we could just post them in our hearts.
Yeah, I'll just print them out and put them on my wall.
You do have some wall space back there.
Yeah. All right, well, I guess that's it. We'll see you guys
next week.
Bye.
Bye.